You ever start a movie late at night after a long day with no intention of finishing it, but it pulls you in? Then you have to talk about it with your friends and family because it was so good or so bad? You, my friend, are not alone.
Welcome to the Midnight Watch Podcast.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Midnight Watch Podcast, the podcast where we discuss the movies that we all love, secretly love, and love to hate. I'm your host, Jeremy, along with my brother, Josh, and we've got another great episode lined up for you.
You know it. Once again, here at the Midnight Watch, we like to discuss movies that are at least 10 years old or older. And if you are looking for a movie review podcast without spoilers, well, this is the wrong podcast for you, because we all about them spoilers. Anyways, at the end of our review, we'll rate these movies in 4 categories. 1, did it hit its mark when it was released? 2, is it still relevant today? Jeremy's dying laughing. And 3, personal enjoyment. And the big one, number 4, is it a midnight watch? All right, Wolfman, what delicious morsel have we brought back for the pack today?
Today, we're back with the master, Stephen King. This classic hair-raising adventure comes straight out of 1985. Get ready, folks, for go-kart wheelchairs, werewolves, and Gary Busey's teeth. It's time for Silver Bullet.
Oh, oh, oh!
I feel like I let you down, man, when you were saying, you were like, this ain't, we all about them spoilers. I was gonna be like, that's right, and then I didn't say anything, and you were just like, okay, let's move on.
That didn't work.
I'm sorry, I failed. I'm sorry, everybody. We're too lazy to do that, so all right.
Hey.
Move right on that one. Yeah, that was good. I totally dropped the ball on that. All right, let's see what we got here. Silver Bullet came out in 1985, October of 1985, directed by Daniel Attias, I believe that's his name. Screenplay by Stephen King, and this movie had a budget of $7 million, and then it came out with a box office of $12.5 million. It was starring Corey Haim, Gary Busey, Megan Follows, Everett McGill, Terry O'Quinn, and a bunch of other people that you might recognize. Actually, I didn't recognize too many people except for, I forgot his name, the guy who was the bartender. He was in Reservoir Dogs.
Oh.
Yeah, with the Peacemaker bat.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. I didn't even think about that, but you're right. That's totally him.
Yeah. As soon as I saw him, I was like, let's go to work.
Mr. Orange, right?
I don't think he had a color, because he was just, I think he was helping set up.
He was
one of the. I think he was the guy who helped get the crew to. We should review that movie and then we'll find out.
There you go, folks.
If
you want real facts, wait for us to review it, and then we'll find other facts to screw up while we do that movie.
So, did you see? So when his sister Megan Follows, when I saw her, I was like, "Hey, it's Anne of Green Gables."
There you go.
You get that?
I did. Well, I just knew that she looked familiar to me, and I had to IMDb just to see what everyone had been in, and as soon as I saw it, I was like, oh, obviously.
Right. They did.
That's a big one here in the Josh Baruto home.
I think
Anne of Green Gables.
I'm pretty sure that if you're going to be a homeschooler, you have to watch the 80s Anne of Green Gables Canadian show. Whether
don't tell Trinity that, because she wasn't homeschooled and their family loved it. In fact, I think it makes her dad cry sometimes. So
it might.
Sorry, Steve.
It might make me cry too, because I haven't seen it in a while. He's like, I know where you live. But
all right.
One more thing about that rabbit trail. I was watching New Girl, and they reference it in that they get stoned and watch Anne of Green Gables, and so I thought that was really funny.
That is.
Yeah. Okay. Going on. Oh, and one thing I thought was cool too. I'm a fan of Terry O'Quinn. Every time I see him, I'm like, oh, it's John Locke from Lost. But he's in a ton of stuff. He just always pops up. He's one of those character actors. He was the sheriff in this movie.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. Did you watch the show? Castle Rock. Did you watch that?
I watched the first season.
Okay.
And
yes.
I wanted to keep going, but I just haven't.
Right. I haven't watched the second season yet either, but I think it's cool they keep bringing in actors that were in older Stephen King stuff, like the other movies, since he was the warden in that. and then of course they have D. Wallace and so on and whatnot. So,
Right.
All right, now that I've talked enough about rabbit trails there, so real quick before we get into the synopsis, did you want to say something?
No, I'm good.
Okay, this movie it made money, so it wasn't a bomb, but it wasn't exactly like a huge success. And
Right.
they apparently, I was looking at it, and I guess they had lackluster posters, which is, there's only one poster I've seen in this movie that actually I think looks cool, but I just don't think that they advertised it very well, so it didn't make a lot of money.
No, I was the same thing. I was looking at those original posters, and they're terrible. I mean, even for the time, they just, I don't know. It's like they were just thrown together by some, I don't know, somebody who doesn't know what they're doing.
They look like the modern Marvel trailer posters, like the crappy ones.
Right.
But yeah. But anyways, so yeah, I tried to find trivia on this movie. There's not a lot of trivia out there that I could find when I was looking for it. Did you find anything interesting? Like a lot of trivia?
Not really. I just found a few tidbits here and there.
Yeah.
Actually, and it was even kind of stuff that I was probably would have brought up on my own that I was curious about. So yeah, nothing that really was like, oh my gosh.
Right.
So interesting.
This is a cult classic. There is a following for this movie, but I think it's kind of like Christine, where it's got a smaller following instead of like a big cult classic.
Yeah,
So,
I could see that.
yeah.
Well, and it's based off a novella, a short story that he did called Cycle of the Werewolf,
Yes.
which I'm sure we'll talk about that a little bit more.
Yeah. Let's get into that. So, what's the synopsis?
All right, well, let's break this movie down. So, Jane Coslaw serves as the narrator of the film, as well as the older sister of the main protagonist of the movie, her paraplegic brother Marty. Their rocky relationship changes after a series of murders in their small rural town of Tarker's Mills, Maine, starting in the spring of 1976. Railroad worker Arnie is decapitated by an unseen attacker. Pregnant Stella prepares to kill herself but is brutally murdered in her own bedroom. An abusive father is killed in his greenhouse. And Marty's best friend, Brady, is also killed. After Brady's death, citizens form a vigilante justice group. Although local sheriff Joe Holler attempts to stop the citizens, he relents after being berated by Brady's father. Reverend Lowe fails to dissuade the townsfolk from causing further bloodshed. While the vigilantes hunt for the killer in the nearby woods, 3 are attacked and killed. The survivors later deny seeing anything unusual. Afterwards, Reverend Lowe dreams that he is presiding over a mass funeral when his congregation, including the bodies in the caskets, begin to transform into werewolves before his eyes and attack him. He awakens screaming and asking God to let it end. As a result of the mounting unsolved murders, curfews are put in place, canceling the town's 4th of July celebration. The Coslaws decide to have their own backyard party and invite Nan's alcoholic brother, Red. Red gives the gift of a custom-built wheelchair motorcycle to Marty, which he nicknames the Silver Bullet, as well as a pile of fireworks so he can have his own celebration. Marty uses the Silver Bullet to go out in the middle of the night to a bridge where he lights the fireworks. The fireworks get the werewolf's attention and it confronts him, but he escapes after launching a rocket into the creature's eyes. Marty enlists Jane's help to look for someone with a newly injured or missing eye. She discovers that Reverend Lowe is missing his left eye. Realizing that no adult would ever believe his story, Marty begins sending anonymous notes to Reverend Lowe, telling him that he knows who he is, what he is, and that he should commit suicide in order to stop the killings. Lowe tries to run Marty off the road with his car. When Marty is trapped under a closed, covered bridge, Lowe, whose sanity has been fractured by his condition, tries to rationalize the murders he has committed as doing God's work. Lowe apologizes and moves in for the kill until Marty calls for help from a passerby. The siblings manage to convince Red that Lowe is connected to the murders and attempted to kill Marty. Red persuades Sheriff Holler to investigate. That night, Holler, still skeptical but desperate to find the killer, goes to Lowe's house and finds Lowe has locked himself in his garage to restrain himself from further killings. Before Holler can arrest him, Lowe transforms and bludgeons Holler to death. Knowing the werewolf is coming for them next, Marty and Jane convince Red to take Jane's silver cross and Marty's silver medallion to the gunsmith, who melts them down into a silver bullet. On the night of the full moon, they wait for the werewolf, who cuts the power to the house and smashes its way inside, attacking Red. The bullet is nearly lost in the melee, but Marty is able to retrieve it and shoots the werewolf in the right eye. The corpse turns back into Lo before dying. As the trio recover, Marty and Jane say they love each other and embrace, and Jane narrates that although she hadn't always been able to say it, she was able to say it from then on. And that is the movie in sort of a nutshell.
And that's all we have for you guys today. So
And that comes to you from Wikipedia.
Wikipedia. Bring me that wick. Give me a piece of that Wikia bar. Okay.
We're gonna pretend that didn't happen.
Okay. So this one, the synopsis makes more sense than the movie itself, to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
Because right off the bat, like, this movie, I don't think knows what it wants to be. So, like,
I totally agree.
because like there's a couple scenes right at the very beginning where it's like funny, cheesy, and I'm like the kid runs over the bug and he's like, hey, and I was like, that's funny, and I started laughing at that. I was like, okay, cool, we're gonna have like a cheesy movie. And then the werewolf sequences are like, they're very violent and not funny. Right. It's like they're very well done, and the dialogue's all over the place, and I felt like the movie didn't even get started. Like, I was not interested in the movie until like way over halfway through the movie, when they find out they're looking to see who's missing the eye.
Right.
And that's when I felt like the movie actually got my attention. So what about you?
I totally agree. Exactly in my notes, I'm all, this movie floats between like a cute family movie and a rated R film. I totally think this movie could have been PG-13, and I would have loved to see it edited into a PG-13 movie, because I feel like if they could have just made some of the violence maybe a little off camera, or just a little bit less of it, the rest of the movie is like, to me, it's like the quintessential 80s, kid movie. I mean, The Goonies, or the Goonies. I can't think of another one, but just something where it's like kind of an adventure movie with kids, and just that ultimate kind of feel good, nostalgic feel, and being a kid and being adventurous, which I feel like Stephen King does that really well with his child characters. But yeah, it felt like two different movies that they tried to force together, and I think it easily could have been like a really good PG-13 movie. I don't think it was a great rated R movie, because like you said, the werewolf violence is definitely violent, but everything else is not. And then even like the language in it, to get that R rating feels kind of forced and out of place.
Yeah, and it's weird. It's like so this movie has some drama behind it, actually.
Right. Real quick, was this the first time you've seen this movie? Because usually we talk about where we were when we first saw it.
I'm sorry. Yes, this was the first time I'd seen this movie. I had seen like 5 minutes of it on TV way back in the day, and it was freaking scary. And then I was excited to review this movie, because I was like, this is a Stephen King movie I have not seen that is kind of a cult classic. It's out there, right. What about you?
I watched this actually I didn't even get to see the whole thing straight through, but I watched a lot of it back with my old buddies back in Sacramento, the International Sacramento Film Club.
Nice.
And it was probably during Halloween, when we were just binging through, one of the Halloween years where we're just every Sunday we were just smashing through as many, horror movies as possible.
Oh, gotcha.
So I definitely saw this one later in life. It for sure terrified me as a kid.
Oh yeah.
And then did you read that short story, The Cycles of the Werewolf?
Yes, I reread it last night to just refresh myself. That is such a good story.
It is. I also read it yesterday. I've read probably 85% of all of his material. Mm-hmm. And this is one that I've started to read, I don't know how many times over the years, and just never got around to it. So this was a cool kick in the butt to just like hurry up and freaking read the story.
Right.
And yes, I think a lot of his short stories, well, especially his novellas, which are it's a little long for a short story, but it's definitely smaller than a novel. But he's amazing at those. Like, I feel like his endings even are better in his novellas. Considering he writes such lengthy books, he does a mean job at short stories too.
Yeah, I'm really interested to read more of his novellas, because I had read this story a long time ago. So when watching the movie, I knew who the villain was, but this rereading the story, I was like, man, this is really, really good. Like I need I'd like a hard copy of that. Actually, it's a great read. They did a pretty interesting job, very unique job of translating it to the screen, because like the whole rocket car or his go-kart rocket cart thing was like totally made up for the movie. His relationship with, and I take it back. His uncle helped him with that, but he had 2 bullets in the book, and in the movie he only has 1.
Well, the uncle also, just in the book, he really only shows up at that the 4th of July party where he gives them the fireworks, and then he shows up at the end of the movie, shows up at the end of the story to kill the werewolf, and does the whole bullet thing.
Right.
But Gary Busey as the uncle is a pretty significant part of the movie.
Yeah, and I thought it was interesting too. Like Gary Busey most of the time plays the villain in movies. He's like the psychotic, crazy dude, and in this one, he's the alcoholic, crazy good guy.
Right. Lovable uncle. The guy that cool uncle that is a bad influence on you, but you love him anyways. Or especially.
Yeah, I actually liked him in this movie. I thought he was actually entertaining and endearing.
Yes, he was endearing. Though I did think his one-liners were god-awful. And that is part of the trivia that I found. And almost all the one-liners in the movie were him ad-libbing.
Oh, man. Yeah.
And so he did the take. He would do all of his takes with the script the way Stephen King wrote it, and then Stephen King gave permission for him to ad lib also, and then Stephen King ended up loving all of his ad libs, so they left him all in.
I will say this: I think Stephen King was on cocaine when he wrote this story, because
entirely possible.
Right after this, I believe, was when he did his own screenplay and directed Maximum Overdrive.
Yes.
And he's pretty much admitted that he was on drugs like that entire time that he did that movie.
The entire time, right.
So I'm pretty sure, because this movie is like all over the place. The writing's terrible. It's bad. The thing is, some of the actors bring it. Like Kent Broadhurst, the dad of Brady, when he reacts to his son's body,
that was powerful.
I was like, dang. And then my wife turned to me and she was like, yeah, that seems about accurate, that if you see your kid just shredded in front of you.
Yeah.
So that was what threw me off with this movie, was there's like some really cheesy, super cheesy parts in this movie. And then the violence is like off the wall. Like, wow, that's really violent. Like, especially when the pregnant woman gets like slowly, or gets ripped by both. Of course, at the time, my mindset was like, this is going to be funny, and then like that happens and I'm like, oh, I've got a little uncomfortable. You all right there? My wife is pregnant right now, so I'm just like, you okay?
A little extra protective there for sure.
And she was like, oh, that was brutal. And so then and then especially like when the dad of the drunk dad or whatever gets pulled through the floor and kind of gets stabbed by the broken wood thing, and then the special effects are well done on this. But I will say, okay, so I got some information about the werewolf. I think the werewolf design in this movie is god awful, though.
Oh, it's bad for sure.
It is not fun. Like, there's so many werewolf movies, and there's so many ones where you're like, oh yeah, that looks cool. I understand, it's a harder look to pull off than vampires. That's easy, but
hey, real quick, did this make you want to watch Wolf Cop when we were done watching
Dude, yes, it did.
Because that is a terrible movie that is trying to be a terrible movie, and it is awesome.
It is so good. That is one of my wife's favorite movies. Like, it is so good. Like, so I literally told her when I was like, man, I can't wait for us to review that movie, but it's too new, so we might break our own rule. But
we might have to. That might need to be a bonus review, one of those ones we randomly throw out.
Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah.
But because after seeing this movie, I was like, okay, Wolf Cop had to have been heavily based off of this movie, at least the feel of it.
Yeah, I agree, because I definitely was just like, oh my gosh, and they have a second one now, so I haven't seen the second one.
Oh
no. So the drama that I wanted to talk about in this movie is that it's basically with the producer Dino De Laurentiis. I think that's how you say his name. But
I think it's Dino.
Dino, excuse me, Dino. That makes a lot more sense, Yeah. Dino.
I mean, I could be wrong. Maybe that's his name. Maybe he's this big crazy fat Italian.
I don't know.
Call me Dino.
Call me
He's got
Dino.
the gold chains and the tracksuit.
Maybe. We'll call him Dino for right now. But the original director was actually Don Coscarelli of Phantasm. And he basically...
I saw that, yeah.
Okay, so you know what I'm talking about, where they haven't designed the werewolf suit yet. So he filmed everything that wasn't the werewolf fights, and then was waiting for them to finish designing the werewolf outfit. And he got so upset because they was taking forever that he quit the picture.
Right. Well, I thought he also didn't like the look of the werewolf. Wasn't that part of it too?
Well, it said that
I knew there were several people that did not like the way it looked.
Well, he was actually... That was the producer. The producer hated the way that the werewolf looked. Which, Stephen King liked it. Stephen King was actually specifically asked that it would be more of a plain type of werewolf instead of more of a crazy hybrid looking werewolf. So it's supposed to look more like almost a bear wolf, and which I've seen that too. But like The Howling has some I think some pretty incredible werewolf effects, and the werewolves are cool in that. And then of course Underworld, the werewolves are all like jacked in that movie.
Right.
But this one was just it looked kind of like, when you finally see the werewolf, it looked like a guy in a suit. And so I didn't think it was that good. But yeah, they stuck with that. And then they brought in the other director, Daniel Adias, I believe that's his name. And this is the only movie that he's directed. He's directed some TV stuff, but I don't think, because this movie was blown out of the water. I think it was like half of the movie was him, though. Or maybe less than half the movie. So that's probably why there's so many different...
It feels like two
changes.
movies. Yeah. Well, that's what I think too. Because before you said that Dan Corelli, how do you say his last name?
Coscarelli.
The guy from Phantasm, Coscarelli.
Yeah.
Well, I was wondering too because all the stuff he filmed was basically the non-violent stuff. So I wonder if that's why it felt like it was going to be a kid's adventure kind of movie. Yeah. And then, other dude brought in all the crazy stuff. But yeah, it feels like two different movies. For sure. Right.
Because the movie kind of got put on pause, and he left the project because it was taking forever. And then the producer that was fighting it finally was like, okay, they told him, they're like, okay, we're going to drop the project, or we're going to finish making it and release it.
Right.
So then he was like,
and he had to go off and do Phantasm 46. So
exactly. So there you go. Well, not the producer, that director left and did Phantasm 46. Okay. But yeah, so anyways, I think that makes sense, though, why there's a lot of tonal shifts. Also, though, the narrative of this is one movie that I feel like they filmed the movie, they screened it, it was too long, so they're like, hey, cut out a half hour of footage. And you're like, okay. So they cut out a half hour of footage, because then there's so many different plot holes in this movie that doesn't make sense. And I understand the story that it's based off of. They don't explain like how he became a werewolf. I get that. But I feel like they could have explained that, or if they didn't, that's fine if it wants to be ambiguous. But I think it would have been cool, though, to see like what does the pastor actually feel about this. Like we don't really get his idea on this, because he has a reason to kill the pregnant woman. But then also too, though, my wife and I were like, what werewolf actually is like a house invader werewolf? Like he specifically goes to where they live.
Right.
So when they all
there seems to be some intelligence involved there when he changes.
Right.
Which isn't. I mean, you look at Underworld, and those werewolves have a little bit more thought process, or however you want to call it. So it's not like it's not. It's not like it's impossible for a werewolf to be that way, but they definitely didn't set up the ground rules as to why or.
No, the ground rules are.
It's rushed.
Or
just thrown in there. I don't even know if rush is fair. It's just there.
And like the whole thing about him changing on the full moon doesn't really happen in this movie. Like this movie takes place over like 3 or 4 months, and the book is awesome because it takes place over 12 months, so you get 12 different attacks.
Right.
And the book.
Well, I think they kind of tried to do a weak explanation. I know the kids were talking at one point, and they're like, "Well, maybe it's." Maybe he's only gets stronger as the full moon happens. And the attacks are just something like that.
He gets more wolfy the closer he gets to the full moon.
That might have been that exact line.
I'm pretty sure it was. That was cocaine's a heck of a drug.
It is.
I just thought that's when I was like, okay, because my wife loves werewolf movies, and so we're watching the movie, and we're just like, okay, so this werewolf isn't doing this, it's not doing this. Like, it seems like it's intelligent. It's not eating the people when it attacks them. It just attacks them and then leaves. And
Right.
it's very different from which is weird. That's what confuses me. Stephen King wrote the novella, which has classic werewolf tropes in it. The werewolf,
Yeah.
wigs out. He eats his victims. The pastor doesn't know what's going on until like July or something like that. He doesn't even realize that he's a werewolf. He keeps
Right.
blacking out, and then so that makes more sense. And then in the movie, they're just like, nah, we're gonna do something different. And so, yeah, I was disappointed with that. That's why I felt like this movie has a great idea. I love the idea of the werewolf getting shot in the eye, and then they're like trying to figure out who the villain is.
Right.
And I liked the extra scene where the pastor tries to run the kid off the road. I thought that was a really cool, intense
Right.
scene.
Because he's totally losing it. They do kind of show him. He's got that thick 5 o'clock shadow when normally he's all clean shaven. So you definitely see he's starting to unravel and maybe change a little bit.
Yeah.
I just feel like the movie was more about the kid and I don't know, a little bit about the werewolf. Because I was going to say, I really thought Corey Haim did a good job being the kid. I thought it, for a
he
kid
did.
actor in the time period, I thought it was good. Same thing with, what's her name, Follows, Anne Shirley.
Megan follows. Yeah.
Megan. It's actually Megan, I read.
Excuse me. Megan
Violet.
follows.
Yeah.
Man, you're on it today. I love it. That's what I'm
I
talking
read
about.
up a little bit, man.
There we go.
So,
One of us getting
but yeah.
professional. I like it.
It just anyways, they were the two kids, I think were probably the two of the best actors and or most consistent performances throughout the whole movie. And I think I just really enjoyed watching them just do their thing and their brother and sister dynamic. And she thinks he's he gets everything he wants because he's crippled, and he's actually a very kind of humble little kid, and he's just he tries to do the right thing. And
Yeah.
and she's a teenager and dealing with changing, into being an adult and having to navigate all that. So I felt like there was this really strong kid dynamic going on.
Yeah, I can see that.
But and then there was this werewolf stuff that they kept trying to throw in, and Gary Busey, which he is endearing, but he was goofy. And then the thing a little bit of a side note, not even a side note, just the scene where the first scene you see him, he's playing cards with, what's the kid's name?
Mark?
Uh,
Let me look.
It's not
Marty.
It's not Mark. Marty,
Marty.
thank you. Anyways, he's playing cards with Marty, and he's full on drinking wild turkey out of the bottle.
Oh, yeah,
with
he's just, like,
with the kid
gulping it down.
The mom's in the kitchen cleaning up, and he's just chugging out of that bottle. And I'm just like, I feel like that's kind of what you do when you're an alcoholic and you drink at home by
Right.
yourself, or maybe you're partying with adults or something. But it just seemed a bit much for like chilling with your nephew, and I'm just gonna slug it right out of the bottle.
Right. No, I agree. I feel like they should have had him just drinking beer. That would have been more.
Sure.
But I mean, they wanted to paint him as a failing alcoholic who'd been divorced 3 times.
Right.
But I agree. Aubrey looked over at me. She's like, I wouldn't let our kid around that person.
Yeah, it was a bit much.
He's all like, yeah.
That and his one-liners.
Oh, man. Yeah, it's just a gag, ain't it? Like, anyways. Yeah, he's got some funny stuff in there. But I feel this movie, though, it could have been... I'm so torn about this movie. I see the possibilities in this one. I'm like, either it could have gone full-on cheesy, like atrociously bad, or it could have gone on, like, taking itself a lot more serious for the serious parts, and it just kept going back and forth. But it didn't work, because, like, Evil Dead, for example, it does a great job of, like, actually being scary, but then, like, really funny at the same time. But that movie, though, totally knows that it's a gross out movie. And this movie, it was like you said, when the werewolf scenes aren't happening, it's very tame. But then some of the werewolf scenes, like, okay, for example, too, the one scene that threw me out of the movie was, like, when they're in the forest and the werewolf just, like, comes out of the fog in the ground and, like, grabs them and pulls them down underneath.
That was pretty bad.
Yeah, and then the worst part was when the bartender's running away and gets pulled under, and he's, like, hitting them with the werewolf with the bat, And then all of a sudden, the werewolf's arm comes up with the bat and starts hitting him with the bat. And my wife and I just like both were like, "What?" and started laughing. And I was like, "Okay, this movie is crazy." Like, what? Like that movie? Like, there's no way that they filmed that and they were like, "This is serious. Like, this is serious."
I know.
There's no way. I just, as soon as he pulled his, I was like, "Oh, we're watching a parody film of a werewolf movie." So.
Right.
Maybe that's what they were trying to do. Maybe they were trying to totally do like a parody movie of the werewolf movies, but it be scary at the same time.
If they were, then they forgot to do that half the time too, because there's other scenes where it's pretty classic werewolf fare, when it goes after people. But there's just I feel like half the scenes are just kind of goofy. And same thing, if he's a savage beast that's just trying to kill, how does he get? Why is he using a bat like he's a monkey or something, or a human? I mean, should be more wolf, but it was very human to do the bat.
Right.
That being said, that bat was pretty cool. I liked how they carved Peacemaker into it. That was pretty sweet.
Yeah. As soon as that showed up, I was like, "Oh, that's cool. Like, I like that."
Right.
I thought that was pretty awesome.
Oh, something else to pick on with this movie is one of the, I guess, trivia things I noticed was there are continuity errors. Not even continuity errors. They're just this movie's supposed to take place in 76, I think it was.
Oh yeah.
And there are cars from the 80s that are in there. There are the newspapers that some of the townspeople are reading are from the 80s. They're just dates are wrong.
I don't know.
Marty's wearing a calculator watch, and those didn't even come out till the following year, and just just terrible like set dressing in that regard as far as keeping it period accurate.
Right. I feel like they were later. They're like, "Oh, this is supposed to take place in 76. Let's just slap that on the front of the movie."
Right, because it feels like they tried to make an 80s movie, and then we're like, "Oh, crap."
Right. So that doesn't make sense to me. That's just kind of like, what? Okay. But yeah, I mean, I guess they're trying to get away from the 80s movie thing. I don't know. Like, I don't think it mattered, though, with the story. That's why I'm like, why does this have to be in 1976? There's nothing in this movie that makes me think, like, oh, this movie can't take place in the 80s, because they would have been able to do this or that.
The only thing that made it or that needed it to be in the past from the time it was shown, so in 85 or 86 when it released, I forget what you said, but it has that terrible voiceover of basically the sister when she's older. Like, that really bothered me. I was just like, what is this? That felt like another thing they decided to slap on last minute. Oh, let's do a voiceover.
And that didn't make sense.
It was completely unnecessary, and that was the only thing that would be like, oh yeah, it had to take place 10 years ago because she's thinking back and telling you the story.
And I loved how somebody pointed out online, they were like, she sounds like she's in her 40s, but if you look at the time difference, she should be like 20 when she's saying this or something.
Yeah, she's like 10 years older than, herself in the movie.
And she's talking, and you're just like, oh my gosh, that's so bad. Like, yeah, this movie has so many problems with it, though. Like, it's just, I'm so annoyed at it, because I was just like, I was really excited to watch this movie.
Yeah.
And so then, like, there was just character design I thought was interesting. There was certain plot points that didn't really go anywhere, like the whole like the pregnant woman wanting to kill herself, and then the pastor is like, I'm gonna save her soul by killing her. And like, that was just funny to me because it was so goofy. The whole Catholic werewolf with a warped moral conscience gonna save you from the worst sins. But then I wish that if he had thought that he would have had he would have continued that, and then you'd be like, this dude's freaking crazy. But you're just like, it's a homicidal Baptist guy, which, well, actually, I guess, is he supposed to be Catholic in this? In the book, he's Baptist. Right.
And the only reason that Marty isn't able to figure out who he is because his family's Catholic, so they don't really run in the same circles until
they go trick-or-treating
or something. Right. Which was cool. It's really odd that, I mean, again, maybe we just got to blame it on the drugs. Because Stephen King's short story was so well thought out and laid out. And then this is pretty all over the map. That being said, we gotta address the cool factor of that dirt bike wheelchair.
Go ahead and address it.
Well, apparently you weren't as excited as I was, but I was like, dude, I would have, if I was 10 or 11 years old, I would have been tearing all over the place in that. But I feel like that contraption was also another like focal point of the movie, and it really didn't need to be, but
It was, yeah.
It was like a huge part of the movie, which made it, as far as like the kid element of the movie, and if it was gonna be a kid, adventure kind of movie, it's awesome. It totally works, and it just pulls you more in that direction.
Right. As soon as I saw him driving in it, I was like, "Oh, it's a three-wheeler. He's gonna tip it. That kid's dead." That's what I thought.
Dude, Corey Haim must have practiced driving that thing like a ton, because I mean, it looks like, not the spots where he's just hauling down the road. That's probably a stunt woman or something, but definitely all the close-ups when he's whipping it around. I mean, he had to have been. Had to have some practice with it. That one and the first model he had, that little go-kart looking one.
Yeah, I agree. No, that was one thing I was surprised is that there was a couple of close-ups and I was like, oh, dude, that's really him driving it. That's cool.
Yeah.
One thing I thought was cool too that Gary Busey also did his own stunts too, which I thought was I thought that was cool. Like when he's getting thrown around in the end of the movie and he's crashing into all the furniture.
Yeah.
He totally just like ran and jumped off a trampoline into the wall like multiple times. And yeah, he actually hurt himself. I guess he got stabbed in the arm with some of the fake glass.
Right.
But that was so funny because like that was some cool scenes. But I love how he's just like, screw it.
He's very all in, like as a character and everything. I mean, say what you will about that guy. He definitely commits to the character.
Yes. No, I definitely agree. And then one more thing for me that I thought was really cool was I actually really enjoyed the scene where the werewolves are all changing in the church. I thought
yes. I'm glad you brought that up. That was probably my favorite werewolf scene of the whole movie.
Right. Then it made me think, wouldn't that be cool if we see a movie from one guy's point of view where he thinks that he's like living in a town full of werewolves and he's trying to escape, and then it turns out he's paranoid because he's actually the werewolf, and anytime he's trying to save himself from them is like when he's having like a full-on werewolf attack breakdown. So but in his mind he's like trying to escape from werewolves. So that gave me that idea. I was like, that would be a really cool concept to follow on. Right.
Well, we're gonna have to flesh that out. You heard that here, watchers. So when that movie breaks, you'll know. You know where that idea came from.
Exactly. There you go. Came from us. Let's see some money. So, you got anything else before we go to the final verdicts on this?
No. I mean, there's nothing like a werewolf to bring siblings together. If I've said it once, I've said it 100 times. You know me.
You're always bringing it up at parties. You're like, you know what I
family gatherings.
Say?
You know what we really need here is a good werewolf.
Need a good werewolf. There we go. Let's see. So Josh, you think the movie hit its mark when it was released?
For 1985, I don't know, man. I mean, looking at the numbers it generated, it definitely made its money back and then some. But I think it's C+.
Yeah, I give it a C because it didn't lose money. But it only made $5 million, so it didn't even make twice of the amount. I mean, don't get me wrong, that's still a success.
Sure.
But it was still like we were looking at John Carpenter's movies that were coming out at the same time, and they made more money and with the smaller budgets like that too. So
right.
I just think it was okay. Do you think this movie is still relevant today?
I would say no, but at the same time, it's very much a cult classic. There's definitely a lot of love for this film now for being the kind of crappy movie it is. So I don't know. That's a tough answer. No, it's not really relevant, but it's a solid cult classic though.
Yeah, no, definitely. There's a lot of people that like this movie. It got a really nice release on Blu-ray, which is pretty cool. So
yeah, the cover for that is dope. That is a really cool looking movie cover or poster.
I really like how they have so many. They're doing all these cool artwork for these 80s movies. I think that's so cool.
I agree. I didn't give it a letter grade. I say relevance today, I give it a D.
Give it a D. Okay. Yeah, I'd give it a D as well, because I think that it's a cult classic, but it's a lot smaller of a cult classic.
Sure.
So yeah, I give it a D as well. Let's see. Personal enjoyment.
I give it a C+. It was almost a B for me because I really, like I said, I really liked the kids' interaction together. I thought that part of it was really fun. I feel like Stephen King does the child characters in his stories really well, and I thought that translated pretty well onto the screen, regardless of the story.
I will say the child actors did a very good job in this movie.
Yeah,
for sure. I give this movie personal enjoyment. I give it a D because I feel like this movie really just couldn't decide what it wanted to be, and I'm so frustrated because I was just like, it just needs to go one way or the other. Like it needs to pick what it wants to be, and I think part of that though is just because of the drama behind the movie. So
yeah, no, I agree.
So I'm taking it. Is this the Midnight Watch?
Not for me. I have to say no.
Yeah, it's not really for me either. Yeah.
So yeah, but I gotta say, if we were gonna do a werewolf movie marathon, for sure you gotta throw this one in there. I think it's definitely worth watching if you're into old werewolf movies.
Well,
personally.
I was gonna say, as long as we keep rating werewolf movies, maybe we can get together a list of like top 10 werewolf movies. So
yeah, I mean, it's definitely not a good werewolf movie, but it's definitely got enough fun parts in it for me that I mean, like I said, I gave it a C. So there's enough in there for me, knowing that it's not like a masterpiece by any sense of the word, and it makes me want to watch a really truly terrible werewolf movie.
well,
which knows
right.
It knows it's a bad movie, so you go into it ready to laugh and have fun.
Right, that's why I enjoyed Wolf Cop so much. Is because it was just like, this is a B movie. You guys want a B movie? Here's a B movie, and
here's a B movie for sure.
There we go. And so that's what I'm talking about. But all right, let's get ready for next week's quote for the quote for next week's movie.
The quote for next week's movie, yes. Okay,
let's do it.
Come on, we'll take you on right here, right now. Come on.
We play on a real diamond, Porter. You ain't good enough to lick the dirt off our cleats.
Watch it, jerk.
Shut up, idiot.
Moron.
Scab eater.
Butt sniffer.
Puss licker.
Fart smeller.
You eat dog crap for breakfast, geek.
You mix your Wheaties with your mama's toe jam.
You bop rabbles in the toilet, and you like it.
You play ball like a girl.
What did you just say?
You heard me.
Tomorrow, noon, at our field. Be there, buffalo butt breath.
Count on it, pee drinking crap face. We only laughed once. That was pretty good.
That was pretty good. I'm glad we went over it before we recorded it, because I was like, this is a lot of just like boom, 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 one-liners.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's coming out next week. Okay, yeah. So we did switch our release dates from Fridays to Wednesdays. So just remember that we are going to be dropping a new episode every Wednesday from now on. That's about it for today's episode. If you want to check out this movie, special thanks to our sound producer, Jake Colvin. If you enjoyed this episode, we'd love it if you shared it with your friends or anyone you think would like it.
Absolutely. I personally rented this movie on iTunes for $3.99.
Ooh.
Did you rent yours?
Yeah, I rented it on Amazon Prime.
Well, there you have it. Please hit that subscribe button. Give us a 5-star rating if you please. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, we'd also appreciate any kind of positive review on whatever platform you're listening to this on. And if you'd like to contact us, you can hit us up at themidnightwatchpodcast@gmail.com.
Thank you guys so much for listening. You have an amazing week. And as always, keep up the watch.